should have this.
Okay.
I tried to read it, but it's very low. I know. Russian is very, very low. Why they
I'm not saying that.
Sure, everybody usually tells me why it's like that's very
Because people think of me as
I look like I'm crazy.
So, hello everyone, and welcome. And welcome to the Massapequa Public Library. We have a great concert planned for you today. We have Tennessee Walt, who's going to perform a lot of traditional country music. So, thank you. He's here, I swear it, I saw him before. He's here, but all that's left is the hat, evidently. So if anybody knows what happened to our performer, help us out. So I just want to make a few other brief announcements. One of them is there is an emergency exit over there. So, you know, he's going to really be on fire, but, you know, if the place actually burns down from it, go to the emergency exit. It'll take you safely
And no
outside.
pushing and shoving.
Exactly, no pushing and shoving. The other thing that I want to tell everybody is that we have an exciting concert series planned for this year. Some of the shows are going to be inside, some of them are going to be outside. All of them are going to be very good. So it's something that everybody will really enjoy. If you haven't seen it, take a look at our newsletter, and it'll be really great. So
Where do we have, where's the newsletter?
right here.
Right here. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Well, I don't know, Harry.
Anyway, that said, let's welcome Walt on the stage.
Thank you, sir. For cooking and exercising.
Oh, this is great. Here, where's this now?
It looks like one of
Comb your hair in paint and powder. You act proud and I'll act prouder. You sing loud and I'll sing louder. Tonight we're setting the woods on fire. You're my gal and I'm your fella. Dress up in your frock of yellow. I'll look swell, but you'll look sweller. Setting the woods on fire. We'll take in all the honky tonks. Tonight we're having fun. We'll show those folks a brand new dance that never has been done. I don't care who thinks we're silly. You be Daffy, I'll be Dilly. We'll order up 2 bowls of chili. Tonight we're setting the woods on fire. I'll gas up my hot rod stoker. We'll get hotter than a poker. You'll be broke, but I'll be broker. Tonight we're setting the woods on fire. We'll sit close to one another, up one street and down the other. We'll have a time, old brother, setting the woods on fire. We'll put aside a little time to fix a flat or two. My tires and tubes are doing fine, but the air is showing through. You clap hands and I'll start bowing. We'll do all the laws allowing. Tomorrow I'll be right back plowing, setting the woods on fire. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. That was Setting the Woods on Fire, written by Fred Rose and Edward G. Nelson, and originally recorded by Hank Williams in 1952. And before we go any further, let me welcome you to Tennessee Walt's The Other Great American Songbook. I am Tennessee Walt, and all you really need to know about me is that my name is not Walt, and I'm not from Tennessee. Now, everybody's familiar with the phrase, the Great American Songbook, right? That's the term used for the popular songs of Tin Pan Alley, which is what they called West 28th Street in Manhattan back in the years from the 1900s into the 1960s, when it was the center of the American music publishing industry. Its biggest names were people like Irving Berlin, Sammy Kahn, George and Ira Gershwin, Cole Porter, people of that ilk. Now, they wrote their songs for one simple, straightforward reason: money. They sold their songs to music publishers, to record companies, to singers with nightclub acts, if they were lucky, to Broadway or to Hollywood. Now, at the same time that they were working from the 1930s into the 1960s and beyond, there was another group of songwriters working on another street that would become legendary, Music Row in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, some of those songwriters were also performers, people like Ernest Tubb, Hank Snow, Hank Williams, and Loretta Lynn. Others were strictly songwriters, people like Fred Rose, or Cindy Walker, or Harlan Howard. A handful, notably Willie Nelson and Kris Kristofferson, started out as songwriters, but then built careers as performers. Now, the songs that they created are every bit as central to America's musical heritage as the ones by Berlin and Porter and the Gershwins, but they never get anything like the same kind of respect. You'll almost never hear a cabaret singer, for example, follow a song by Jerome Kern with one by Porter Wagoner. So this show is a very modest attempt to redress that imbalance. Country music as we know it today, meaning the commercial art form that we call country music, dates from the so-called Bristol Sessions of 1927, also known as the Big Bang of country music. This took place in Bristol, Tennessee, which is a small city straddling the border between Tennessee and Virginia, from July 25th to August 5th, 1927. A man named Ralph Peer, who worked for the Victor Talking Machine Company, one of the early record labels, was touring the South looking for traditional music which might have commercial potential on records. And he set up shop in Bristol and ran advertisements in the city's newspapers, inviting local musicians to come in and audition. Over the course of 12 days, 19 different solo and group acts passed their auditions and recorded for Peer's microphones. And of those 19, 17 would be of no historical significance whatever. But the other two included a young singer named Jimmy Rogers and a vocal trio called the Carter Family. By the end of the next year, after being signed to Victor contracts, they would be country music's first two superstars. The genesis of country music comes from the combination of two earlier forms, mountain ballads, which included both original songs and also folk versions of classic hymns and Victorian power ballads, and the blues, an African-American form rooted in the Deep South and drawing on African music. The Carter family grew out of the mountain ballad tradition. They were a husband, wife, and sister-in-law team from Macy's Spring, Virginia, which is just as small as it sounds. A.P. Carter and Sarah Carter were married, and Maybelle Carter was married to A.P.'s brother and also was Sarah's first cousin. So they really were a family. And they remained a top recording act until 1941, when Sarah's divorce and subsequent remarriage finally put an end to the act. Now, the Carters were among the most unlikely superstars in the history of popular music. They were middle-aged people who dressed plainly and looked frankly uncomfortable in front of cameras. And they sang some of the most depressing songs ever to top the charts. In a Carter family song, if your mother isn't dying, your children are dying. If you aren't in a flood, you're in a train wreck. If you aren't in a hospital, you're in jail. And this one, believe it or not, is actually one of their cheerier ones. It was adapted by A.P. Carter from a 1907 hymn by Ada R. Habershon and Charles H. Gabriel. Pretty much the same tune, mostly different words. It was first recorded in 1935 and has become the unofficial national anthem of country music. I was standing by the window on one cold and cloudy day, and I saw the hearse come rolling for to carry my mother away. Can the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. Lord, I told thee, Undertaker, please drive slow, for this body you are hauling, Lord, I hate to see her go. Can the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. I followed close behind her, tried to hold up and be brave, but I could not hide my sorrow when they laid her in that grave. Can the circle be unbroken the sky. Went back home, Lord, my home was lonesome. Missed my mother, she was gone. All my brothers, sisters crying, never was a home so lone. Can the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. In the sky, Lord, in the sky. If you'd like to learn more about that song, or indeed any of the songs in the show, there's a whole set of program notes on TennesseeWalt.com. As the latest entry in my country music blog there, you'll find a little bit more information about each of the songs, along with links to recordings of the original recording and also any subsequent cover versions that I think are particularly appealing or interesting. Please note that appealing and interesting are not by any means the same things. But in this case, it will also include a link to a 2016 essay that I wrote on my blog, which is entirely about that song and about why it is so completely misunderstood these days. Check out those program notes. Anyway, the Carter family became known as the first family of country music, but it was not A.P. Carter who became known as the father of country music. That honor went to Ralph Peer's other major discoverer in Bristol, Jimmie Rodgers. Now, in those days, there was no such term as country music, and if you asked Jimmie Rodgers what it was he did for a living, he would have told you that he was a blues singer. He had grown up steeped in the African-American music of the Mississippi Delta. Born in 1897 in Meridian, Mississippi, he had bounced around the fringes of show business for most of a decade before meeting Ralph Peer. And he actually came to Bristol as the vocalist for a quartet called the Centennial Ramblers. Unfortunately, the night before their audition, they argued over which songs they ought to sing. Argued to such an extent that the next day, Rodgers auditioned as a solo act and his partners auditioned as a trio. You may wonder which one of them made the right decision, which one had the right idea, what kind of songs they should be doing. Let's just say that by the end of the next year, Jimmie Rodgers was one of the biggest names in American music. The Centennial Ramblers were basically never heard from again. Now, the world of Jimmie Rodgers was every bit as bleak as that of the Carter family, but there was a jauntiness to his tone, even in his most despairing songs, which charmed audiences, even in the depths of the Great Depression. This was perhaps to be expected from a guy who savored the perks of stardom, fast cars, beautiful women, lavish hotel suites, and expensive suits, but who also knew that well before he had ever arrived at Bristol, he had been diagnosed with tuberculosis and did not have long to live. I'm sorry, that wasn't it at all. Let's do that again. One more time. I make mistakes occasionally, so you can tell that I'm not lip syncing. Yeah, that's it. I'm springing in the wrong key. It's amazing how much that messes things up. All around the water tank, waiting for a train, 1,000 miles away from home, just sleeping in the rain. I went up to a brakeman just to give him a line of talk. He said, if you've got money, boy, well, I'll see that you don't walk. I haven't got a nickel, not a penny can I show. get off, you railroad bum, and he slammed the boxcar door. He put me off in Texas, a state I dearly love. The wide open spaces all around me, and the moon and stars up above. No one seems to want me or to lend me a helping hand. I'm on my way from Frisco, heading back to Dixieland. Oh, my pocketbook is empty, and my heart is full of pain. I'm 1,000 miles away from home, just waiting for a train. I'm 1,000 miles away from home, just waiting for a train. If you'd like to learn more about that song, there is a whole essay about that one too on TennesseeWalt.com. Check out those program notes. Well, Jimmie Rodgers holds a unique distinction in the history of American music. He recorded 108 songs, and since then 107 of them have been covered by other recording artists, which is a much higher percentage than the Beatles or Elvis Presley or Frank Sinatra or anybody really. My personal ambition is someday to record that 108th song and make it unanimous. Incidentally, where would you guess that the father of country music died? The answer is New York City. He was in town for a series of recording sessions and took a day off to visit Coney Island, where he had a great time. But on his way back, he collapsed in front of his hotel. He was carried inside and died there that night. He was only 35 years old. The hotel was the Taft Hotel on 7th Avenue between 50th and 51st Street. Today it is a condominium called the Executive Plaza. There is no historical marker commemorating Jimmie Rodgers. Of all the songs that Rodgers recorded, this is probably the one that has been covered by the most other singers. I have a friend named Ramblin' Bob. He likes to steal, gamble, and rob. He thinks that he's the smartest man around. Well, I got word on Monday that Bob got locked up Sunday. They've got him in the jailhouse way downtown. He's in the jailhouse now. He's in the jailhouse now. And I told him once or twice, quit playing cards, quit shooting dice. He's in the jailhouse now. Bob likes a game called poker, pinochle, whist, and euchre. But shooting dice, now that's his favorite line. He's downtown in jail with no one to go his bail. The judge remarked that he refused to fine. He's in the jailhouse now. He's in the jailhouse now. And I told him once or twice, quit playing cards, quit shooting dice. He's in the jailhouse now. She started calling me honey, and we started spending my money. We checked out every honky-tonk in town. We're in the jailhouse now. We're in the jailhouse now. I told that judge right to his face, don't care for the way you run this place. We're in the jailhouse now. That's Jimmie with an I-E, not a Y. He got very upset about that sort of thing. One of the things that has set country music apart from the rest of popular music from the 1920s down to the present day is that sense of sadness that I mentioned earlier in talking about the Carter family and Jimmie Rogers. In American popular music, whether you're talking about Tin Pan Alley and Broadway in those days or contemporary pop and rock and roll, usually the worst thing that ever happens is unrequited love. Now, country is a different story. It was written for grown-ups, not for teenagers, and its core audience lived in a world in which poverty, sickness, alcoholism, adultery, violence, tragedy of every kind were everyday facts of life. In other words, they lived in the real world, and they appreciated music that reflected the way things were. Hank Williams, born in 1923 in Chapman, Alabama. That's right next year is the Hank Williams Centennial. I will be doing an all Hank Williams show for that season, so keep an eye out. Fill out your mailing list form right now and get it in there so you can hear about where, when, and where it'll be. And needless to say, talk to Mr. Gondel about having when and where be here and then. Anyway, born in 1923 in Chapman, Alabama, was the preeminent master of the so-called golden age of country music in the 1940s and early 1950s. He had a career that was even shorter than that of Jimmie Rogers. He died when he was only 29. But in only a few years as a star, he recorded dozens of songs that have defined country music ever since. Elvis Presley, who grew up in Mississippi listening to the Grand Ole Opry and dreaming of someday becoming a country star, used to sing this Hank Williams song in concert. He called it, quote, probably the saddest song I've ever heard. Hear that lonesome whippoorwill, he sounds too blue to fly. The midnight train is whining low, I'm so lonesome I could cry. I never knew a night so dark when time goes crawling by. The moon just went behind a cloud to hide its face and cry. Did you ever see a robin weep when leaves begin to die? That means he's lost the will to live. I'm so lonesome I could cry. The silence of a falling star lights up a purple sky. And as I wonder where you are, I'm so lonesome I could cry. There, you find me a pop or a rock and roll or a Broadway song that's anything like that kind of tone. You can't tell the story of country music without talking about religion. Since the days of the Carters, one of the things that has set country aside from the rest of popular music is that its top stars have always recorded songs of faith, which is something you very seldom see, say, with Broadway or jazz or rock and roll. Since the days of the Carters, country has been a Christian form. And many of its greatest stars have been motivated, at least in part, by their faith. But the Christianity of country music is not the Christianity of gospel music. Great country stars may have sung about faith, but they did not sing about theology. They didn't sing about the details of their faith. Now, some would say this was because they didn't really have any, and indeed some of the ones that were most pious in their music were anything but once the show was over. But it was also because the details didn't really matter. Most of the religion in country music descends from "Can the circle be unbroken?" The music acknowledges that the world is all too often a brutal and unforgiving place, and looks to the afterlife for some faint ray of hope. Now, exactly what the afterlife might be like isn't really the point, just the hope that it will be better than life here. I mean, how could it not be? Red Foley, born in 1910 in Blue Lick, Kentucky. These guys all seem to be from towns that you have never, ever heard of. Blue Lick, Kentucky in 1910 was known as the Country Crosby for his immaculate crooning. He was also one of very few country stars to have a musical education, having attended the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music. The greatest hit of his long career was his 1951 recording of Peace in the Valley, a 1937 song by the great gospel icon Thomas A. Dorsey, which had originally been recorded by the great Mahalia Jackson. Foley's version, recorded shortly after the tragic death of his wife, sold more than 1 million copies, many of them in 1953, after he sang the song at the nationally broadcast funeral of Hank Williams. It became Foley's signature song and was the last song that he sang before his own death in 1968. I'm so tired and so weary, but I must go along till the Lord comes to call me away, where the morning is bright and the Lamb is the light, and the night is as fair as the day. There'll be peace in the valley for me someday. There'll be peace in the valley, I pray. No more sorrow and sadness, nor trouble will be. There'll be peace in the valley for me. There the flowers will be blooming, the grass will be green, and the skies will be clear and serene. The sun will ever gleam, giving one endless beam, and the clouds there will never be seen. There'll be peace in the valley for me someday. There'll be peace in the valley, I pray. No more sorrow and sadness, no trouble will be. There'll be peace in the valley for me. There the bear will be gentle, the wolf will be tame, and the lion will lay down by the lamb. The host from the wild will be led by a child. I'll be changed from the creature I am. There'll be peace in the valley for me someday. There'll be peace in the valley, I pray. No more sorrow and sadness, no trouble will be. There'll be peace in the valley for me. No more headaches, nor heartaches, nor misunderstand. No confusion or trouble will be. No frowns to defile, just one big endless smile. There'll be peace and contentment for me. There'll be peace in the valley for me someday. There'll be peace in the valley, I pray. be peace in the valley for me. You may ask, in 1951, was it a normal thing for white artists to cover songs by black artists? The answer is no. It was very unusual. It would wait until the mid-1950s, and artists like Elvis Presley, before covering black songs, became a normal thing. If you're looking for a reason as to why Foley might have chosen to do this particular song, I mentioned earlier that it was recorded shortly after the tragic death of his wife. What happened was that she committed suicide immediately after finding out that he had been unfaithful. So I think the line, "I'll be changed from the creature I am," might be what drew Mr. Foley to this particular song. Hank Williams himself had written one of the most iconic of religious country songs, drawing on the familiar country trope of the singer's awareness of his own sinfulness. Williams was a devout Christian who somehow managed to combine a sincere piety with alcohol, pills, womanizing, devilry of all kinds. He was inspired to write this particular song when he was drunk, passed out in the back of a car being driven home after a show. His mother was driving, and she spotted the roving searchlight of an airport, which meant that they were almost home. So she turned and called over her shoulder, "Hank, wake up! We're almost home! I saw the light!" I wandered so aimless, life filled with sin, I wouldn't let my dear Savior in. Jesus came like a stranger in the night. Praise the Lord, I saw the light. I saw the light, I saw the light. No more darkness, no more night. Now I'm so happy, no sorrow in sight. Praise the Lord, I saw the light. Just like a blind man, I wandered alone. Worries and fears I claim for my own. Then like the blind man, God gave back his sight. Praise the Lord, I saw the light. I saw the light, I saw the light. No more darkness, no more night. Now I'm so happy, no sorrow in sight. Praise the Lord, I saw the light. I was a fool to wander and stray, for narrow the gate and straight is the way. Now I have traded the wrong for the right. Praise the Lord, I saw the light. I saw the light, I saw the light. No more darkness, no more night. Now I'm so happy, no sorrow in sight. Praise the Lord, I saw the light. I saw the light, I saw the light. No more darkness, no more night. Now I'm so happy, no sorrow in sight. Praise the Lord, I saw the light. I Saw the Light was, of course, the title of a 2015 film about Hank Williams that starred Tom Hiddleston as Williams. Well, this was actually the second Williams biopic, following a 1964 film called Your Cheatin' Heart, which starred George Hamilton. Show of hands, who here has seen that movie? There's a couple. How about that? Well, of course, Stein has seen it. Stein has seen all movies. That movie is noteworthy mainly for having been produced under the auspices of Williams's first wife, Audrey Williams. This meant that a few minor details of his personal life got left out. Among them, most of his alcoholism, all of his drug abuse, all of his womanizing, and, oh yes, his second wife. The more recent film focuses squarely on the relationship between Hank and Audrey, who was a strong-willed, combative woman whose defining characteristics, other than her remarkable beauty, were, number one, a strong determination to become a country star herself, and number two, a striking lack of musical ability of any kind whatever. Now, she and Hank had an obvious passion for one another, but they fought constantly, both verbally and physically, and both were routinely unfaithful. Williams would cheat pretty much every time he had an out-of-town show, and if she wasn't in a show with him, Audrey would sometimes come and sit in the front row and make out with some other guy. So this is definitely a relationship that had its issues. According to Williams' second wife, Billie Jean, he was inspired to write the song Your Cheating Heart when he was driving with her and talking about Audrey. Now, according to Audrey, it is a song to himself, repenting his many infidelities. You can draw your own conclusions. Your cheating heart will make you weep. You'll sigh and sigh and try to sleep, but sleep won't come the whole night through. Your cheating heart will tell on you when tears come down like falling rain. You'll toss around and call my name. You'll walk the floor the way I do. Your cheating heart will tell on you. Your cheating heart will pine someday and crave the love you threw away. The time will come when you'll be blue. Your cheating heart will tell on you when tears come down like falling rain. You'll toss around and call my name. You'll walk the floor the way I do. Your cheating heart will tell on you. If you'd like to learn more about the apostrophe in the title of that song, there is a whole essay about it on TennesseeWalt.com. And you think I'm kidding, but it actually is. It's called Hank Williams' Apostrophe and the Quest for Authenticity. Check out those program notes. Cheating turns up a lot in country songs because it's part of the country singer's lifestyle. He or she these days is on the road all the time, far from home, with nothing to do but to feel lonely, to cheat on his wife, and to think about what she may be doing back home while he's out of town. Now, of course, this is also part of the rock and roll lifestyle, the pop lifestyle, the jazz lifestyle, and so forth. But for whatever reason, the artists in those forms don't write about it in their songs. Country artists do. Now, the classic of this subgenre was written by the great Kris Kristofferson, born in 1936 in Brownsville, Texas. Kristofferson has maybe the most unusual resume of any member of the Country Music Hall of Fame. He is a former Rhodes Scholar, a former Golden Gloves boxer, a helicopter pilot, a former captain in the U.S. Army. He was one of Nashville's most admired songwriters for years before becoming one of its most popular performers. And of course, he has a whole second job as a movie star. He has 118 film and television credits. Among other things, you may remember him as opposite Barbra Streisand in A Star Is Born. And if you want to really puzzle your kids, say, well, who was the one of the first big stars in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? And the answer is Kris Kristofferson in the Blade movies back in the 1990s, before moviegoers had ever heard of the X-Men or Spider-Man or anything like that. Well, nonetheless, his place in country history would be secure if he had done nothing but write the definitive song about life on the road. Take the ribbon from your hair, shake it loose and let it fall, laying soft upon my skin, like the shadows on the wall. Come and lay down by my side till the early morning light. All I'm taking is your time. Help me make it through the night. I don't care what's right or wrong. I won't try to understand. Let the devil take tomorrow. Lord, tonight I need a friend. Yesterday is dead and gone, and tomorrow's out of sight, and it's sad to be alone. Help me make it through the night. I don't care what's right or wrong. I won't try to understand. Let the devil take tomorrow. Lord, tonight I need a friend. Yesterday is dead and gone, and tomorrow's out of sight, and it's sad to be alone. Help me make it through the night. I don't want to be alone. Help me make it through the night. If you wanted to boil down Kris Kristofferson's entire 50-year career as a songwriter down to a single line, it might be, "And it's sad to be alone." All of his greatest songs are about loneliness. But I could tell you a lot more about Kris Kristofferson, but one of the shows I have in the works is an entire show of Kris Kristofferson songs, and it's one of my all-time favorites. I was planning to do that one in 2021, but then things got all crazy. So one of these years, not next year, because next year is Hank Williams' year, but somewhere in there, the Kris Kristofferson show, which is probably going to be called Big Time Lonesome City, the songs of Kris Kristofferson. Keep an eye out for it. Oh, and fun fact, Kristofferson was inspired to write that song when he read an Esquire interview with Frank Sinatra. Asked, "What, if anything, do you believe in?" Sinatra replied, "Booze, broads, or a Bible, whatever helps me make it through the night." Well, we are coming up on where I sometimes take a 10-minute intermission. I don't think we'll be doing that today, which is a pity because it deprives me of the chance to tell you that after that I will be back with some songs associated with the great women of country music, some songs by artists who are actually still alive, and some songs showcasing the humorous side of country. As it is, all I can say is that before we take our non-break, I have one more song for you, and it is also, in a strange way, about life on the road. The great Hank Snow is unusual among members of the Country Music Hall of Fame, and having been born in Canada, to be precise, in Nova Scotia, where as a boy he worked as a door-to-door lobster salesman, which apparently they have in Nova Scotia, kind of like Girl Scouts with cookies, except it's some 12-year-old holding up a lobster. Or at least they did in the 1930s, maybe not so much today. Anyway, he grew up to be a merchant seaman, and one of his shipmates was an American who owned a wind-up phonograph and a stack of Jimmy Rogers records. and this changed Hank Snow's life. Snow wrote most of his own biggest hits, but this one was written by an Australian songwriter named Jeff Mack. Snow heard the song somehow, I have no idea because it was released only in Australia, but he loved it and he got in touch with Mack somehow and asked if he could revise it for an American audience. It came out something like this. I was towing my pack along the dusty Winnemucca Road when along came a semi with a high-end canvas-covered load. If you're going to Winnemucca, Mac, with me you can ride. So I climbed up in the cab and then I settled down inside. He asked me if I'd seen a road with so much dust and sand, and I said, listen, bud, I've traveled every road in this here land. I've been everywhere, man, I've been everywhere, man. I've crossed the deserts bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. Of travel I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Been to Reno, Chicago, Fargo, Minnesota, Buffalo, Toronto, Winslow, Sarasota, Wichita, Tulsa, Ottawa, Oklahoma, Tampa, Panama, Padawan, La Paloma, Bangor, Baltimore, El Salvador, Amarillo, Tocopilla, Maryville, and Padilla. What a killer! I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. I've crossed the deserts bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. Of travel I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Boston, Charleston, Dayton, Louisiana, Washington, Houston, Kingston, Texarkana, Monterey, Faraday, Santa Fe, Tallapoosa, Black Rock, Tennessee, Hennessy, Chicopee, Spirit Lake, Grand Lake, Devil's Lake, Raiders Lake, for Pete's sake. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. I've crossed the deserts bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. Of travel I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Pittsburgh, Plattsburgh, Colorado, Ellsburg, Rexburg, Vicksburg, Eldorado, Larimore, Airmore, Hattiesville, Chattanooga, Chaska, Nebraska, Alaska, Opening, Baraboo, Waterloo, Kalamazoo, Kansas City, Sioux City, Dodge City, Winnipeg. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. I've crossed the desert bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. On travel I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Louisville, Nashville, Lubbock, Sheffield, Jacksonville, Waterville, Costa, Pittsburgh, Springfield, Bakersfield, Shreveport, Hackensack, Cadillac, Fond du Lac, Denver, Idaho, Jellicoe, Tuckahoe, Argentina, Pasadena, Pasadena, Catalina, what I mean. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. I've crossed the desert bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. The travel I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Louisville, Nashville, Lubbock, Sheffield, Jacksonville, Waterville, Costa, Pittsburgh, Springfield, Bakersfield, Shreveport, Hackensack, Cadillac, Fond du Lac, Denver, Idaho, Jellicoe, Tuckahoe, Argentina, Pasadena, Catalina, I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. I've crossed the desert bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air. Travel I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. I've even been a Massapequa punk. And they told me that 45 years doing Gilbert and Sullivan would never pay off.
Wow.
Well, I'll tell you two funny little things about that song. One time when I did take an intermission, I think this was at the Shelter Rock Public Library up in Albertson. As I came back in afterwards, somebody came up and tapped me on the shoulder and said, you know, during the intermission, I looked this song up online. Did you know there's 94 different places listed in that song? And I said, I'll take your word for it. I'm not going to count. And the worst single performance of that song, maybe any song I've ever done, was at the Mineola Public Library in 2018, I want to say. It was not my fault at all. As I got to the end of the second verse and was taking a deep breath, a woman sitting somewhere near the front said in a very loud, "He's getting faster." So I immediately laughed and choked, and I had to vamp for like an hour and a half until I was ready for that one again. Anyway, you can see why I usually like to take an intermission to catch my breath there, but I'm doing all right. We promised you some songs associated with the great women of country music. Now, that's not as easy as it sounds, most notably because most songs sung by women in country are written from a female point of view, and they're hard for a man to sing. I mean, I love You Ain't Woman Enough to Take My Man, but I do not perform it. I'm not going to be singing Stand By Your Man for you. Somehow it just sounds a lot different coming from a man than it does coming from a woman. In addition, most of my favorite country songs are from the 1930s, 1940s, and 1950s. And until near the end of that period, there really weren't any great women of country music. Now, the reasons for that are complicated, but it boils down to the fact that country itself had a bad reputation. Its live performances were usually in honky-tonks, smoke-filled dives, packed with reckless men and shady women, and the general consensus was that no respectable woman would want to have anything to do with it. Now, there were a couple of exceptions. You could sing country if you were a member of a family group led by your father or husband, the way that Sarah Carter did. Or you could be the vocalist for a big band or orchestra, which might occasionally do a country song. Like, for example, the great Patsy Montana, whose 1934 yodeling hit, I Want to Be a Cowboy's Sweetheart, I will not be performing for you tonight. They asked me to perform it on the soundtrack for Breakback Mountain, but I decided not to. And basically women weren't allowed to sing country music. And for any of us who've been listening to country for the last 60 years or so, this is hard to fathom because for as long as we can remember, some of the biggest names in country music have been women. Where would contemporary country be without Faith Hill, Miranda Lambert, Leanne Rimes, Taylor Swift, Shania Twain, and Carrie Underwood? And that's not even talking about veteran acts like Emmylou Harris or Reba McEntire or Dolly Parton or Loretta Lynn or Tanya Tucker. But all of those women owed their careers to one woman and to one song. The woman was Kitty Wells, and the song was It Wasn't God Who Made Honky-Tonk Angels. The year was 1952. And Hank Thompson had a #1 country hit with a song about a man who has married a woman whom he met at a honky-tonk and has lived to regret it. You wouldn't read my letter if I wrote you. You asked me not to call you on the phone, but there's something I'm wanting to tell you. So I wrote it in the words of this song. I didn't know God made honky-tonk angels. I might have known you'd never make a wife. You gave up the only one that ever loved you and went back to the wild side of life. The glamour of the gay night life has lured you to the places where the wine and liquor flow, where you wait to be anybody's baby and forget the truest love you'll ever know. I didn't know God made honky-tonk angels. I might have known you'd never make a wife. You gave up the only one that ever loved you and went back to the wild side of life. It hurts me to know that you don't love me, though I know that our love's forever gone, and it killed the soul and pride dear inside me, to see you in that stranger's arms so long. I didn't know God made honky-tonk angels. I might have known you'd never back to the wild side of life, and went back to the wild side of life. Now, the wild side of life was a big hit, and in those days, if a song was a big hit, somebody would often write an answer song, which would be a continuation of the song, or a rebuttal to the song, or a parody of the song in some form. In this case, a songwriter named Jay Miller wrote an answer song in the voice of an actual honky-tonk angel, arguing that the original song was a sexist travesty, and the only problem with honky-tonks was the kind of men you met there. As I sit here tonight, the jukebox playing your song about the wild side of life. As I listen to the words you are saying, it brings memories when I was a trustful wife. It wasn't God who made honky-tonk angels, as you said in the words of your song. Too many times married men think they're still single. That's caused many a good girl to go wrong. It's a shame that all the blame is on us women. It's not true that only you men feel the same. From the start, most every heart that's ever broken was because there always was a man to blame. It wasn't God who made honky-tonk angels, as you said in the words of your song. Too many times married men think they're still single. That's caused many a good girl to go wrong. It wasn't God who made honky-tonk angels, as you said in the words of your song. Too many times married men think they're still single. That's caused many a girl to go wrong. Now, this was a terrific song, but it came with a built-in problem. It needed to be sung by a woman, and in 1952, there were no female country stars to sing it. Even Sarah Carter had been retired for 11 years by this point. Miller turned to an unknown, Kitty Wells, an occasional backup singer for her husband, Johnny Wright, of the country duo Johnny and Jack. She recorded the song more or less on a lark because there was a $50 union fee for cutting a record. Had no expectations that anything would come of it. But in fact, the song became an overnight smash, dislodging The Wild Side of Life from #1 on the charts. The only time ever that two songs with the same tune have followed each other on the charts. It turned out to be especially popular with women who responded to the song's proto-feminism and its rejection of the misogyny of the original song, and indeed of much of the rest of country music as well. Wells was signed to a contract with Decca Records and got to work on the string of hits that would earn her the nickname the Queen of Country Music. This is one of them, written by Jimmy Work. Making believe that you still love me, it's leaving me alone and so blue. But I'll always dream, since I'll never own you. Making believe is all I can do. I can't hold you close when you're not with me. You're somebody's love, you'll never be mine. Making believe I'll spend my lifetime loving you and making believe. Making believe that I never lost you. But my happy hours I find are so few. My plans for a future can never come true. Making believe, what else can I do? I can't hold you close when you're not with me. You're somebody's love, you can never be mine. Making believe I'll spend my lifetime loving you and making believe. Kitty Wells was also known as the Queen of the Weepies. For whatever reason, most of her songs, certainly most of her biggest hits, are songs of despair in the classic Carter family style. Well, a whole generation of future country stars heard Kitty Wells sing "It Wasn't God Who Made Honky Tonk Angels" and pricked up their ears. In Sevier County, Tennessee, a 6-year-old named Dolly Parton was inspired to become a child singer and made it to the Grand Ole Opry by the time she was 11. In Custer, Washington, a 20-year-old housewife and mother of 4 named Loretta Lynn sat up and took notice. The first to actually make it to Nashville, though, was another 20-year-old named Virginia Patterson Hensley, who had grown up in Winchester, Virginia, where her family called her Ginny. Everybody else called her Patsy. I'm sorry. I'm crazy. Crazy for feeling so lonely. I'm crazy. Crazy for feeling so blue. I knew you'd love me as long as you wanted. Then someday you'd leave me for somebody new. Worried, why do I let myself worry? Wondering, what in the world did I do? I'm crazy for thinking that my love could hold you. I'm crazy for crying and crazy for trying. And I'm crazy for loving you. Patsy Cline did not write Crazy, of course. Neither she nor Kitty Wells were involved in the writing of their songs. Crazy was actually written by a little-known Texan named Willie Nelson. It's a little-known fact, he was also a performer, working clean-shaven and with a short haircut, wearing a jacket and tie. It would be another decade before he grew a beard, let his hair grow long, ditched the jacket, ditched the tie, put on a bandana, and became one of country's longest in the works overnight sensations. He actually wrote Crazy for Billy Walker, the country singer, who turned it down, one of the worst decisions in the history of country music. To this day, Patsy Cline's recording holds the record as the all-time most popular jukebox song ever in any genre. The first and still the greatest of country's female singer-songwriters was born as Loretta Webb, but rose to stardom under her married name as Loretta Lynn. She is still alive today at 90 and is still working. She released an album just this past year. I recommend it to you. It's really, really good. Now, Lynn is one of my all-time favorites, but it is hard for a man to sing most of her biggest hits because they are strongly female in their inclination. However, there is one, not written by her. It was written by Peggy Foreman. But with just a little bit of tweaking of the lyrics, it works for a singer of either gender. Laid awake in this big old bed, I've got you on my mind. I said when I left I could make it by myself, but it gets harder all the time, and I can't take it no more. I see your face every time I close my eyes. So I'm going out now and I'm searching for you this very night. I want you out of my head and back in my bed before the morning sun comes up. Can't stand another night without you holding me tight. How I miss your loving touch. I'm gonna search everywhere that you might be, and when I find you, I'm bringing you home with me. I want you out of my head and back in my bed before the morning light. Well, I might find somebody new to share my misery, but no other dame is even half the same when it comes to loving me. I don't want everyone to say that I was a fool for playing it cool. I won't be satisfied till you're back at my side and I'm loving you. I want you out of my head and back in my bed before the morning sun comes up. Can't stand another night without you holding me tight. How I miss your loving touch. I'm gonna search everywhere that you might be, and when I find you, I'm bringing you home with me. I want you out of my head and back in my bed before the morning light. One of the things that delights me about Loretta Lynn is she stuck around long enough for me to hear her in concert a number of times. Most of the other artists that I fell in love with 10 years or so ago had departed from the scene well before I got a chance to hear them, but Loretta Lynn keeps on chugging. Well, we are getting towards the end of the show. Everybody knows how this works, right? I just gave you a little subliminal signal that we're getting towards the end of the show. I'm now going to do a few more songs, and then I will introduce the fake final song. After which point I will get up, bow, and exit from the stage. You guys then clap, and I come back and grudgingly agree to do one more song. Or if you clap a lot, maybe 30 or 40 more. After which, I will again get up, take a bow, hang my hat back up, and I will go home. And you do likewise. Just want to make sure we're all straight on the protocols here. Anyway, we are getting towards the end of the show. And if you've been keeping track, you may have noticed that of the 15 songs so far, 13 of them are by artists who are at the present time dead. The other 2 are by living artists with a combined age of 176 years old. Now, I am the first to admit that The Country I Love Best is from a long time ago, and that a lot of current day country lacks the things that I love most about country. Mr. Gundell said to me earlier, well, it's not really country at all, is it? He said it, not me, but yeah, there you go. Nonetheless, there are some very talented people working in country today, and I'd like to do 3 songs here that are by living artists who have a combined age of less than 140. This one is one of my favorite country songs of the current century. It's by a singer-songwriter out of Reading, Pennsylvania. I'm so glad you made time to see me. How's life? Tell me, how's your family? I haven't seen them in a while. You've been good, busier than ever. With small talk, work and the weather. Your guard's up and I know why. Because the last time you saw me is still burned in the back of your mind. You offered me your heart and I left you there to cry. But this is me swallowing my pride, standing in front of you saying I'm sorry for that night. And I go back to December all the time. It turns out freedom ain't nothing but missing you, wishing I'd realize what I had when you were mine. I'd go back to December, turn around and make it all right. I'd go back to December all the time. These days I haven't been sleeping, staying up, playing back myself, leaving when your birthday passed and I didn't call. And I think about summer, all the beautiful times I watched you laughing on the passenger side and realized I loved you in the fall. But then the cold came, the dark days when fear crept into my mind. You offered, gave me all your love, all I gave you was goodbye. But this is me swallowing my pride, standing in front of you saying I'm sorry for that night. And I go back to December all the time. It turns out freedom ain't nothing but missing you, wishing I'd realize what I had when you were mine. I'd go back to December, turn around and change my own mind. I'd go back to December all the time. Mr. Tan Skin, your sweet smile, so good to me, so right. And I held you in my arms that September night. The first time I ever saw you cry. Maybe this is wishful thinking, probably foolish dreaming. But if we loved again, I swear I'd treat you right. I'd go back in time and change it, but I can't. So if the chain is on your door, I understand. But this is me swallowing my pride, standing in front of you saying I'm sorry for that night. And I go back to December all the time, all the time, all the time. Can anybody tell me who wrote that beautiful song? Your granddaughters could. It's by Taylor Swift. It's from 2010. She wrote that song when she was 20. That's what I call a talent. Now, she has wandered away from country in recent years, but we hope she will find her way back soon. Country could certainly use more songs like that. Junior Brown did not put out his first album until he was older than Taylor Swift is now. But he's since then made up for it with some of today's funniest songs and also some of today's most amazing guitar playing and the steel guitar playing, because he uses an instrument of his own design called the Git Steel, which mounts the strings of the guitar here and the steel guitar here, so he can play both of them at the same time. This is one of his many great songs. It's good to see you, baby. It's been a long, long while. We're both a whole lot older and we've seen a lot of miles. But things are really different now since the good old days. And you've been in some trouble since we went our separate ways. We'll have to say hello maybe some other time instead, 'cause you're wanted by the police and my wife thinks you're dead. Somebody spread the rumor that you had lost your life. At least that's the way I heard it, and it's what I told my wife. Now here you're turning up again, and talk is getting round. And I can see how one of us will have to leave this town. If you think that I want trouble, then you're crazy in your head, 'cause you're wanted by the police, and my wife thinks you're dead. You never called or wrote me, just up and disappeared. Nobody knew what happened, where you've been for all these years. Now trouble's what you're looking like, 'cause trouble's where you've been. And I can see the kind of trouble you could get me in. You better say hello maybe some other time instead, 'cause you're wanted by the police, and my wife thinks you're dead. Goodbye to you, baby. I'm glad we got to talk, but I'm faithful to my wife and I don't ever break the law. I don't know where you're headed, but I know where you've been. We've reminisced, now let's both go our separate ways again. Go find another ex, sweetheart, to hang around instead, 'cause you're wanted by the police and my wife thinks you're dead. I say you're wanted by the police and my wife thinks you're dead. Incidentally, if you will happen to habituate YouTube, do a search for My Wife Thinks You're Dead, Junior Brown. There's a hilarious video done in the style of silent comedy films. It's maybe the funniest single music video I've ever seen. And as you can tell from my white beard, it's not like I've seen lots of music videos, but I've seen some. They say that in writing a country song, the thing you have to aim for is for it to be about experiences that everybody has had, feelings that everybody can relate to. Well, this song is set in Tennessee, and the author, a very gifted young man named Jason Januzzi, who works with a terrific New Jersey-based band called Citizens Band Radio, probably based it on experiences that he had had in New Jersey. However, it's a truly universal concept, and I feel that anybody who has ever ridden the Long Island Railroad would be able to understand this song. Waiting on a train that never seems to come. Waiting on a train. Waiting on a train that never seems to come. a train to Birmingham. Sitting at that station, just twiddling my thumbs, waiting on a train that never comes. And I'm thinking about my life, staring at that clear blue sky. I wish I had a nickel for every minute that's gone by. Instead I've just got trouble on my mind, waiting on a train that never seems to come. Waiting on a train to Birmingham. Sitting at that station, just twiddling my thumbs, waiting on a train that never comes. It's that Johnson City line. Right now, Lord, I wish that I could die. I thought I heard the whistle, but 10 minutes have gone by. I wish that I had wings and I could fly. Waiting on a train that never seems to come. Waiting on a train to Birmingham. Sitting at that station, just twiddling my thumbs, waiting on a train that never comes. Waiting on a train that never seems to come. Waiting on a train to Birmingham. Sitting at that station, just twiddling my thumbs, waiting on a train that never comes. Waiting, 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 waiting. I'm sitting at that station, just twiddling my thumbs, waiting on a train that never comes. Citizens Band Radio, don't forget them. They're really wonderful. Well, it's about time to wrap things up, so I'd like to thank you for coming out today to hear some country in the suburbs. It's a funny thing about New York City, where you basically can find anything you want as long as you can pay for it, that it is the only place in the country where it is hard to hear country music. Most of the rest of the country, it's hard not to hear it. However, in New York, you can find any kind of music you want, but if the kind you want to hear is classic country, the thing to do is to fill out the mailing list form in your program. There's a box right next to the door in the back, and there's even some pins in case you don't happen to have one with you. Or you can follow us on Facebook.com/Tennessee Walt, or you can check the tour page on TennesseeWalt.com. One way or another, I do online shows, I do in-person shows. This is both an in-person show and an online show, so 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But get on the mailing list one way or the other. Keep in touch. I've enjoyed singing for you very much today. Would love a chance to do so again soon. And for our final song, I'd like to do another Kris Kristofferson song, speaking of all kinds of music. This was popular back in the 1970s as a denunciation of people who hate country without giving it a fair chance. If you listen to it more carefully, I think you will find that it is actually about people who want to write off any kind of music without giving it a shot, including people who want to write off everything except country. And before anybody asks, I have tweaked the lyrics of this song fairly considerably for good and proper reasons, which are explained in the program notes on TennesseeWalt.com. Also, there is not only a link to the original recording, but also a complete printout of the entire original lyrics, so you can see what I changed and what I didn't change. Nonetheless, I will say that not only does this song speak for me personally, but I'm pretty sure that Kris Kristofferson would agree entirely. I go for Bob Dylan, and I take Taylor Swift. I say Eminem has a genuine lyrical gift. Hearing Tony Bennett sing is a seminar in class. But if you don't like Hank Williams, brother, you can kiss my ass. doing, and they're doing it the best way that they can. You're the only one and you are screwing when you put down what you don't understand. I love Gilbert and Sullivan and Adina Menzel too. Paul McCartney and Loretta Lynn are the best in what they do. Hearing Joni Mitchell feels as good as smoking grass. But if you don't like Hank Williams, brother, you can kiss my ass. 'Cause I say what they've done is well worth doing, and they're doing it the best way that they can. You're the only one and you are screwing when you put down what you don't understand. I dig Stephen Sondheim and Kris Kristofferson. Anything the Dixie Chicks put out has a shot at #1. I love the Metropolitan Opera and I love the Canadian Brass. But if they don't like Hank Williams, brother, they can kiss my city boy country lovin'. 'Cause I say what they've done is well worth doing, and they're doing it the best way that they can. You're the only one and you are screwing when you put down what you don't understand. When you put down what you don't understand. Well done indeed. I knew you could do it. A little bit of early instruction makes a difference. Anyway, thank you very much. I'll just tell you very briefly, the reason I messed with Kris Kristofferson's song there is that at the time he wrote the song in 1976, I believe, the distinguishing characteristic of the musicians he listed, they were all contemporary people who were in a wide variety of different kinds of music. The thing is, if I sing the original lyrics today, their distinguishing characteristics, almost all of them are dead, and the others are really elderly. So it changes the song's meaning from being about how you should go out and listen to what's going on in the world of music to all the good stuff is from a long time ago, so don't go out and listen to the world of music. So I've chosen to update it with artists whom I like, but I happen to know that he also likes many of those artists. I'm not sure how he is with Gilbert and Sullivan, but I don't really care. The chances that he will ever hear my version of this song are fairly low. Anyway, yeah, we do have a few minutes left, so I typically use my encores to do a few of my own songs. So I thought I would do that today as well. This is a 2021 song. I wrote a lot of songs in 2020 and 2021. She greets me in the morning with an air she can't disguise. Her smile is simply beautiful, but it doesn't reach her eyes. She thinks she's fooling me. I guess she thinks I'm blind. But I know her and I can see she's loving me with leaving on her mind. She wishes me goodbye as she's walking out the door. I couldn't tell you why, but it's not like it was before. She says it with a smile, the best that she can, but I can see that all the while she's loving me with leaving on her mind. She may be with me, but her mind is off somewhere. She's right here in bed with me, but hardly even there. I don't know that she planned it, there's so much to unwind. I may not understand it, but She's loving me with leaving on her mind. There's something going on, I can taste it in her kiss. It's always had a special taste, but never one like this. She does it oh so well, she's maybe being kind. All I know is I can tell she's loving me with leaving on her mind. And that's the way it's gonna stay until one day she's on her way and leaving me with loving on her mind. This is an older one, I believe, in 2017, I think. She left me an empty closet and half an empty bed. It wasn't anything I did or anything I said. Some folks are meant to stay and some to go away. I'm surprised she stayed as long here as she did. She's so wonderful, her feet don't touch the ground. So there never was a chance she'd stick around. The wind blows and she goes. No matter what she may say, she was never gonna stay. The wind blows and she goes. She's been back in town a time or two or more since then. We haven't found the chance to talk or even meet again. It doesn't matter much, we've been so out of touch, and she's still the person that she was back when. She's so wonderful, her feet don't touch the ground. So there never was a chance she'd stick around. The wind blows and she goes. She only comes to stay so she can go away. The wind blows and she goes. There's something in a happiness you know can never last. The present tastes much sweeter for no future and no past. You take her for today, 'cause there's no other way. You just wish it didn't come and go so fast. She's so wonderful, her feet don't touch the ground. So there never was a chance she'd stick around. The wind blows and she goes. She'll be back again someday, but that doesn't mean she'll stay. The wind blows and she goes. The wind blows on, but she's gone. All right, one more, and it won't be a depressing song about a relationship that can never last. Hey, I write country songs. There's going to be a considerable number like that. But this one isn't. Out back of my house, there's a big old rock tall as the second floor. It's been right there for 1,000 years, will be 1,000 more. But I took that rock up to the front if you didn't like the view. I'll tote that rock 100 miles if it's what you want me to. It's a big old block of solid rock, gotta weigh a ton or two. But I ain't gonna let the darn thing get in between me and you. I moved that rock all around the place to each corner of the yard. I took that thing up and down the stairs, it wouldn't be that hard. I moved that rock where you wanted it, move it every day or two. I'll move it several times a day if it's what you want me to. It's a big old block of solid rock, gotta weigh a ton or two. But I ain't gonna let the darn thing get in between me and you. I'd crush that rock to gravel if it fit with what you planned. Or if that wasn't small enough, then I'd grind it into sand. I'd mash that rock, I'd smash that rock, I'd paint the darn thing blue. Hell, I'll paint it pink with polka dots if it's what you want me to. It's a big old block of solid rock, gotta weigh a ton or two. But I ain't gonna let the darn thing get in between me and you. I'd make that rock a paperweight, carve it out to be a shed. Or flatten it as a patio or a tennis court instead. Get some collards and tomatoes and I'll serve it as a stew. Eat a thing that size with a side of fries if it's what you want me to. It's a big old block of solid rock, gotta weigh a ton or two. But I ain't gonna let the darn thing get in between me and you. No piece of stone I've ever known can get between me and you.
We're late today.
Little late always, right?
I've seen you guys all the time.
Galley,
See you tomorrow too.